Magnus Carlsen is widely regarded as the best chess player of all time. Due to his incredible skill, his dominance across different time controls, and his consistency as world champion since 2013, he blends a deep understanding of tactics, adaptability, and an innovative style which really set him apart as a true legend of the game. He became a grandmaster in 2004 when he was only 13, and in the game we're going to analyze today, you're going to see exactly why at such a young age he was seen as the future of chess. This is Magnus Carlsen versus Geir Sune from the 2005 Norwegian Championship, when Carlsen was only 15 years old. Let's take a look. This game started off fairly standard, with knight to f3, the ready opening, and then a knight to s6, and then c4, transforming it into an English. Then e6 and d4, b6, g6, bishop to a6, attacking the c4 pawn. Magnus defended to b3. Now he didn't want to defend it with the bishop because he prepared his bishop for a fianchetto. b5 puts pressure on the pawn, takes another capture, and now the bishop comes to g2. As d4, castle, knight to d7, knight to c4, developing the knight with a tempo by attacking the bishop. Bishop back to a6, rook to e1, bishop to d6, bishop to b2, and then a castle. It's a pretty normal development so far. Now pawn to e4. Here, Magnus opts for opening his position because he has a little more space, and black is pretty crowded in that box. An exchange sequence happens next, and the bishop to b7 setting itself up on this niche diagonal while also attacking the rook. Rook to h4, bishop to e7, and then rook to h3. Now the rook had a bit of an adventure here, arriving at a pretty unusual square at the end, h3, but at the same time it puts a lot of pressure on the king side. Knight to f6, queen to e2, bishop d5, rook to e1, creating a battery on the e-file, queen to b8, preparing queen b7, putting pressure on the diagonal, and trying to create a weakness near the king by capturing the white bishop. Knight to f5, queen to b7, and now Magnus exchanges the bishop, and queen takes. At this point, Magnus's attack has officially begun. Queen to c2 threatens a possible checkmate on h7 if white manages to eliminate that f6 knight guarding the square. Pawn to c5, here black is trying to counterplay white's attack on the king side. Knight to g4, and now black's got to be careful. Can't ignore the checkmate threat. He can't take the knight, and can't make any random move because white's going to take with a check, and then checkmate's going to be unavoidable the next move. Now with all of that in mind, black completely blunders the move to h6. At first look, this seems like the smartest move in this position because if white takes, black will capture back, and the checkmate threat is no longer there. White then brings his rook into the attack by threatening to take the black queen. Now white essentially has all of his major pieces pointed right at the black king. The only move available for black that both saves his queen and helps the defense is f3. And now Magnus plays this brilliant sacrifice. Knight takes on h6, check. Pawn takes, rook takes, and now the black king is wide open, with one rook controlling the h-file and the second one preparing to come to g5 and deliver a devastating checkmate. Now h6 was the critical move that made the difference in this game. The best and only move that could have kept black alive in this situation was h5. So you might be asking yourself why this two-move pawn is so much more important than h6 when the latter seems more useful while also being defended if knight takes. To understand why the pawn push makes all the difference, you got to think of white's plan of attack, bringing the rook into the attack and sacking the knight to expose the black king. If black played h5 after queen f3, sacking the knight would no longer be possible, and white has no way to break black's defense. White will try to bring his rooks on the h-file, but this is no longer possible because the queen guards the h5 pawn. If Magnus tried the original plan with knight h6, pawn takes rook h5, knight takes rook, rook takes, queen takes, and white is dead lost. In this position, white's best move is to exchange knights, bishop takes, rook takes on h5, and black simply plays g6, allowing the bishop to defend the h8 square. Now white, despite having all that attack power pointing at the black king, has no real way to convert it. Then the rook heads to c5, rook to e8, c7, queen to f5, inviting white for a queen trade, king to g2, rook to d8, and the game will continue normally, with white having a 0.6 point advantage according to Stockfish. But in the game, Geir Sune played h5, allowing Magnus to display a brilliant move sequence, managing a queen checkmate while sacrificing all of his pieces. We get back to our position when h6 was played by white. King to g7 in order to defend against checkmate. Another move that black could have played was queen to g4, but this is only going to end in black losing the queen. bishop to c1, preparing rook g5, and the only move for black to avoid checkmate is queen to g7. Rook to g5, and then white's going to have an easy game. King to g7 was the best move in that position, attacking the rook at the same time. Magnus, already down a piece, continues his devastating attack with the same plan, rook to g5, disregarding the unprotected rook on h6. King takes rook and bishop c1, preparing a discovery check. Pawn takes, the best move for black in this position because he's got no real way to defend this, and now white is expected to play a discovering check and win the queen with the rook. But instead, Magnus plays rook to g4. If black plays king to h5, then rook h4 is checkmate next move. If queen to g4, then bishop takes, check, king to h5, and the same rook on h4 is checkmate. So the only move for black here is queen to e3. If Magnus takes the queen in the next move, it's actually considered a blunder, and white's 2.1 advantage becomes an even game. Bishop takes the queen, pawn takes, rook to h4, check. g7, queen to c1, rook to h8, and black now has an equal game while also being 1 point of material up. However, Magnus did not fall for this urge, and he played the smartest move in this position, which was rook to h4. Black then blocked with knight to h5. And now the young Magnus, for the third time in this game, brilliantly takes the knight, and king takes rook. White successfully infiltrates the black king's space, and checkmate is very near. King to g4, and now Magnus takes the queen with the pawn. If he instead took it with the bishop, the game again would have become more equal. Pawn then takes h3 and check. g5, then f4, check. f6, queen to h6 and another check. King to f5, queen to h7, king to f6, h4, check. g7, and after queen takes bishop, the game becomes equal. This is why Magnus took the queen with the pawn in that position. Rook to c8, attacking the bishop, and king to g2. Magnus is giving up his last minor pieces here, just in order to achieve the checkmate. And the king to g2 move sort of has a double meaning. Its most important purpose is to take away the escape squares f3 and h3. And the second one is to defend against a potential check from the rook, because the queen is protecting the c2 square. In this position, the smartest move for black would have been rook to g8, trying to come up with a desperate all-in attack on the white king. But the positional advantage for white is too big to be overturned by black. Bishop to d2, rook to c2, pinning the knight. Queen takes rook and a check. Bishop to g5, h3, check. Queen to h7, check. And after the king moves, white's queen captures the rook. Instead, in the game, Geir Sune took the bishop, and now white has checkmate in 4 moves. h3, check. King to g5, queen to g7, f5, g4, check. King to e4, and queen to d4, and there's a checkmate. Through some masterful play and pure strategic brilliance, Magnus Carlsen shows an exceptional understanding of the game of chess at a very tender age. His precise moves and his insightful sacrifices led to a spectacular checkmate, and it showcases why he was considered the future of chess even when he was just a teen. Carlsen's ability to exploit positional weaknesses, execute precise attacks, and honestly foresee nearly all of his opponent's moves demonstrates why he stands in a category by himself as one of the greatest chess prodigies of all time. This game right here highlights Carlsen's extraordinary talent, setting the stage for his unparalleled success and contributions to the realm of chess.